You have almost certainly been applying perfume in a way that throws half of it into the air and off your skin before it ever has a chance to work. I did it wrong for 30 years. Sprayed it, walked through the mist, watched it vanish by lunch, and told myself my skin just didn't hold fragrance the way other women's did. I blamed my nose. I blamed my age. I blamed the bottle. It was none of those things. I'm Vivian Marchand. I've been buying, wearing, and studying perfume since I was a young woman. I've stood at every counter this side of the Atlantic and been talked into bottles I had no business buying, told they had exceptional longevity, told they would last all day, told I was getting something worth the price I was paying. And I've spent decades figuring out, often the hard way, what's actually true. Before we go any further, a quick word. Everything I share here is my opinion and general information, not medical advice. Fragrance can irritate sensitive skin, so patch test anything new on a small area first, and if you react, stop using it and see a dermatologist. Your nose and your skin are the final judges. Now, the industry would very much prefer you didn't know what I'm about to tell you. Because the real system for making perfume last all day costs about $15 total, and most of it you can pick up at your local chemist or pharmacy this afternoon. Reapplication is the business model. A woman who tops up twice a day buys twice as much perfume, or she buys a bigger bottle. Every extra spritz of designer fragrance at $8 a milliliter is not an accident of chemistry. It is a choice made for you by someone who profits when your perfume runs out fast. Stay with me. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what the system is, where to apply it, in what order, and why your skin holds fragrance differently now than it did at 30 or 40. And none of it will cost you more than the price of a reasonable lunch. But first, the one thing that undermines everything else, the thing most women are still doing because they were told to by someone at a department store counter, and it is why your fragrance disappears into the air before it ever reaches anyone else in the room. You've spent decades training your nose. You know when a room smells expensive versus when it merely costs a lot. You understand the difference between a fragrance that lasts and one that performs for 20 minutes and then quietly leaves. That knowledge is earned. It doesn't come from a counter. It comes from a lifetime of paying attention to what's actually on your skin, which is exactly why it matters to understand what's happening to your skin now and why the fragrance you have worn for 20 years may seem to fade faster than it once did. Not because your nose has lost its sharpness, not because the bottle has changed, though sometimes it has, and we will come to that another time, but because the skin you are wearing it on has genuinely changed. And that changes everything about how fragrance behaves. Here is what the industry almost never tells you. After 50, and especially after menopause, the skin produces significantly less sebum, the natural oil that sits on the surface, and gives fragrance molecules something to hold on to. The outer layer of the skin becomes thinner and renews more slowly. The skin's natural acidity can shift slightly. All of this means that fragrance molecules, which are volatile and want to evaporate, have less to anchor them. The perfume you spray onto dry, lower sebum skin in your 60s evaporates more quickly than the same perfume on oily 25-year-old skin. It is not your nose. It is not the bottle losing its quality. It is chemistry. And once you understand that, the fix becomes obvious. Think of it this way. A fragrance sprayed onto dry, thin skin is like water poured onto sand. It disappears almost immediately, pulled down and away before it has had time to settle. The same fragrance on well-moisturized skin with a natural lipid layer sits differently. It has a surface. It has something to hold it in place while the composition unfolds from top note to heart to base. You smell the whole story instead of just the opening line. You do not need a more expensive bottle. You need a better surface. Now, here is where it gets interesting. There was a woman named Margaret who worked behind a fragrance counter in 1985. I was young, barely 22, and I had just made the mistake of asking her why my new bottle, which had cost me more than a week's wages, had gone completely quiet by noon. She was not like the others. She did not reach for a complimentary body lotion or suggest I try the layering set. She looked at me for a moment, glanced along the counter to see who was listening, leaned across, and lowered her voice a little. "Your grandmother knew this," she said, and then she told me the thing I am about to tell you. She told me the brands hoped nobody would pass it along because there was nothing in it to sell. She was quite cheerful about it, actually. She had worked behind that counter for 11 years, and I suspect she had long since stopped feeling that the industry deserved her loyalty. She was right. There still isn't. The system has three parts. Each one costs almost nothing. Together, they change everything. Part one is an unscented body lotion or cream, not a scented one that matters. A scented moisturizer will compete with or alter your perfume, and you'll spend the whole day smelling something that is neither your fragrance nor the lotion, but a slightly confused negotiation between the two. Unscented only. A good drugstore body lotion costs $4 or $5. A large tube of unscented Vaseline intensive care, a plain store brand cream, all of them work. What you are doing is giving your skin a lipid layer to hold on to. Moisturized skin gives the fragrance molecules something to bond with. Dry skin simply absorbs the alcohol carrier and the scent evaporates before it ever settles. Apply the lotion to your pulse points and let it absorb for 2 or 3 minutes before you spray, not damp absorbed. You want a surface, not a puddle. This alone will extend your fragrance noticeably. It is the single biggest change most women can make for the lowest possible cost. Part two is petroleum jelly. Yes, the plain, unscented petroleum jelly in the small blue and white jar that has been in bathrooms since the 1880s. Vaseline. A travel size tin costs about $3 at Target, Walgreens, or Walmart. You can buy it this afternoon. Take a very small amount, a fingertip's worth, and smooth it onto your pulse points before you spray. The wrist, the inner elbow, the side of the neck. The petroleum jelly is occlusive. It creates a fine barrier on the surface of the skin that prevents the fragrance oil from sinking deep and prevents the alcohol from pulling it away too quickly. It gives the scent something to sit in, something to hold it at the surface where it can be smelled and where it can project. This is the trick. This is what Margaret told me at 22. This is what women knew before the beauty industry decided to replace one good jar with a 17-product layering collection. I'll be honest with you because no one at the counter ever was. The improvement is real, but it is not magic, and it will not turn a $10 eau de cologne into a 12-hour extrait de parfum. What it does is give any fragrance a longer, more even performance on your skin, a steady development through the heart and base notes instead of a quick burst and then silence. The women who use it consistently report a genuinely longer lasting wear. I have used it for years. That part is true. One caution: use very little and apply it to skin, not to clothes. Petroleum jelly on silk or pale fabric can leave a mark that is extremely difficult to remove. Skin only. Part 3 is a refillable travel atomizer. This is the practical piece of the system, and it may be the one that actually changes your daily life. A small refillable spray atomizer, you can find them on Amazon or at any pharmacy for $6 or $7, sometimes a pack of 2 or 3 for under 10, holds about 5 to 8 milliliters of your perfume. You fill it from your main bottle in the morning, drop it into your bag, and forget about it. The reason this matters is this. Even with the best system, some fragrances fade, the afternoon is long, and dinner is not the same as 8 in the morning. A midday top-up on properly primed skin moisturizer already in, petroleum jelly already there, performs significantly better than the first spray of the day on bare, dry skin. You are not wasting perfume. You are using it properly. The atomizer also solves another problem, which is that some of us have a bottle we love that is too large, too awkward, or too expensive to carry about. You are not carrying the bottle, you are carrying the fragrance. That is a distinction that would have seemed obvious to women of our mother's generation. And somewhere along the way, we were persuaded that the bottle was the point. Now, let me stop here for a moment, because there is something I want to address that you will have heard possibly many times, and that turns out to be somewhat more complicated than the way it is usually stated. The rule that says, never rub your wrists together. I was told this for years as an absolute. Some perfumers will tell you that rubbing creates friction, accelerates evaporation, and specifically disturbs the delicate top notes, the citrus, the aldehydes, the light greens that open the composition. And there is something to that. Rubbing does create a small amount of uneven heat and mechanical pressure that may rush the top note stage slightly. But I should tell you honestly, other cosmetic chemists call this effect modest at best and say that a few quick rubs will not meaningfully damage a properly formulated modern fragrance. The jury is genuinely a little out on this one. What I will say is this: I stopped rubbing my wrists about 15 years ago simply because it felt counterintuitive to smear something so carefully made. Let it air dry. Let the composition unfold at its own pace. Whether the science is strong or moderate on the rubbing question, the habit of letting it settle costs nothing and feels right to the nose. That is reason enough. Let's talk about where to spray, because this matters as much as what you put on the skin first. Pulse points are warm places where the blood vessels run close to the surface: the inner wrists, the inner elbow, the side of the neck, behind the ears. The warmth there helps fragrance molecules lift away from the skin and project outward. They evaporate gently, continuously from the heat of your own body. That is the mechanism. You are not just applying a product, you are giving it an engine. The inner elbow is one of the most underused application points there is. I find it far more effective than the wrist alone. Your arms are in motion all day long, every gesture, every reach, every moment you lift a cup, and that motion disperses your fragrance continuously around you, creating what the French call sillage, the trail a fragrance leaves in the air after you have passed through it. That is what makes a room notice you left it. That is what makes someone turn and ask what you are wearing. The inner elbow is largely responsible for that. Behind the knees deserves a mention too, particularly on warm days or when you are wearing a skirt or dress. Heat rises. A small amount of fragrance applied behind the knee creates a soft, lifting trail as you move through a room. It sounds improbable until you try it. You may not be able to smell yourself wearing your fragrance after a few hours. That is, your nose adapting to a constant stimulus, not your perfume fading. Ask someone near you. The sillage is almost certainly still there. What about spraying into the air and walking through it? I did this for years. My mother did it. It feels elegant. I am sorry to report that it is primarily a way to perfume your ceiling and your carpet. The majority of the mist falls downward before you have taken 2 steps through it. Direct application to skin, especially skin primed with the first 2 parts of this system, performs far better than any amount of graceful walking through a fragrant cloud. Let that one go. And hair, because the question comes up. Fragrance in the hair is beautiful. Hair holds scent differently from skin, and it releases it gently with every movement. But spraying perfume directly onto your hair is not wise, because the alcohol in most eau de parfum and eau de colognes is drying over time. The trick is to spray your perfume onto your hairbrush first. Hold the bottle 6 inches from the bristles, give it 1 spray, let the alcohol flash off for a few seconds, and then brush through the lengths from midway to the ends. You get the scent in your hair without the drying effect of direct alcohol contact on the strands. That is a technique that predates synthetic hair products by several decades, and it still works as well as it ever did. Now, I want to say something about what this system is not, because I think it matters to say it plainly. It will not turn a weak fragrance into a strong one. If the fragrance itself is a high alcohol, low concentration eau de cologne with minimal fixatives in its formula, if it is designed structurally to fade quickly, Because it is a very light composition, this system will help, but it will not fundamentally change the fragrance's character. A cologne extreme or a parfum concentration will always outperform a standard eau de cologne on the same skin, primed the same way, because the concentration of fragrance oil in the formula is simply higher. The system improves what is there. It cannot replace what isn't. And it will not be identical on every skin. Your skin chemistry, your natural pH, your diet, your hormones, the medications you take, the climate you live in, all of these affect how a fragrance develops and how long it lasts. This is why the same bottle smells different on you and on your sister. It is why a fragrance that lasts 6 hours on a friend lasts 3 on you. That is not a failure. That is chemistry. And it is also part of what makes fragrance so personal. $15. Unscented body lotion, a small jar of petroleum jelly, a refillable atomizer to carry in your bag. That is the whole system. The counter has had 4 decades to tell you about it. There was never a reason to. The woman the counter loves is the one who keeps buying. The woman I am talking to is the one who knows what she's looking for, who has worn enough to understand what her nose trusts, and who would rather spend the $15 once and keep the fragrance she already loves than be sold another bottle she doesn't need. You don't buy a fragrance, you rent it. This system changes that arrangement slightly in your favor. Tell me in the comments what you're wearing and how long it lasts on your skin and your skin type if you know it. I want to build a real record from real women, so the next woman who finds this channel knows what to expect from the fragrance she is considering. Your experience is data. It is worth sharing. Next time, I'm going to tell you about something that was in every woman's bathroom cabinet before 1958, quietly removed and replaced with something that costs more and does far less. You will want to hear that one. Until next time, wear what's truly yours. You've spent a lifetime training it, and what you wear should reflect you, not someone else's marketing budget.